Marcus Chan adjusted his worn leather jacket as he approached the towering spire of the Galactic Employment Center on New Geneva Station. The artificial gravity felt lighter here than on Earth, making each step feel like a gentle bounce. Around him, dozens of alien species moved through the bustling corridors, tall, blue-skinned Etherians with their crystalline hair, stocky Corvan miners with their rock-like skin, and graceful Silani with their 4 arms flowing like water as they walked. He clutched his data pad tighter, the screen displaying his increasingly desperate job search results. 6 months since the mining operation on Kepler 442b had shut down, leaving him stranded on this frontier station with barely enough credits for basic sustenance. The human settlements were few and far between out here in the Outer Rim, and most employers preferred hiring species with specialized adaptations for their particular environments. The employment center's main hall stretched before him like a cathedral of opportunity and disappointment. Holographic job postings floated through the air, each one accompanied by species requirements that rarely included human, Terran origin. Marcus had learned to read the basic scripts of several alien languages during his years working the outer colonies, a skill that had served him well in the multicultural mining crews but seemed less valuable in the current job market. A melodious chime echoed through the hall, announcing new postings. Marcus watched as fresh opportunities materialized in the air around him, their soft glowing text dancing just within reach. Most were for specialized technical positions requiring cybernetic enhancements he couldn't afford, or physical labor jobs on worlds with atmospheres that would kill him in minutes. He was about to give up when a particular posting caught his eye. Unlike the others, this one wasn't written in the standard galactic common script. Instead, it displayed text in what appeared to be multiple languages simultaneously, shifting between symbols he recognized and others that seemed almost organic in their flowing curves. Seeking employment opportunity for capable individual, the translation matrix in his data pad struggled with the unusual formatting. Household management, child supervision, general maintenance. Species requirements, adaptable, patient, protective instincts preferred. Previous experience with multi-species environments valued. Long-term commitment essential. Contact Zarathul Moonweaver, Residential District 7, Level 43. Marcus blinked at the posting. It was the first job advertisement he'd seen that didn't specifically exclude humans or require impossible physical modifications. Household management wasn't exactly his expertise. He'd spent most of his adult life operating heavy machinery in asteroid mining operations, but he'd grown up helping raise his younger siblings after their parents died in a transport accident. The protective instincts part certainly resonated with him. He saved the posting information and made his way through the winding corridors of the residential district. The architecture here was notably different from the industrial sections where he'd been staying in the cheapest hostel he could find. Curved walls swept upward in organic spirals, and bioluminescent panels provided a warm, living light that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Level 43 turned out to be one of the premium residential areas. Marcus felt increasingly self-conscious about his worn clothing and the faint smell of industrial lubricants that still clung to his jacket despite repeated cleanings. The other residents he passed were clearly affluent, their clothing bore the subtle technological enhancements that marked the wealthy, and their bearing spoke of comfortable lives far removed from the desperate scrambling for work that had defined his recent months. The address led him to a dwelling that defied his expectations entirely. Rather than the sterile, geometric apartments he was used to, this residence seemed to have grown rather than been built. Its walls curved and flowed like living wood, with windows that resembled large, gentle eyes gazing out at the station's central garden district. Marcus approached the entrance, noting the absence of a traditional door. Instead, a shimmering membrane stretched across the opening, responding to his proximity with a soft harmonic tone. The sound carried an almost musical quality, as if the house itself were greeting him. "Please state your purpose," a voice emerged from the membrane, speaking in accented galactic common. The voice carried a quality he couldn't immediately identify, feminine, certainly, but with undertones that suggested a vocal structure fundamentally different from human speech patterns. I'm responding to your employment posting, Marcus said, trying to project confidence despite his nervousness. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm here about the household management position. There was a pause, during which Marcus imagined he could hear quiet conversation from within the dwelling. The membrane shimmered more intensely, and, then, gradually became transparent, revealing the interior of the home. Marcus stepped through and found himself in a living space that challenged every assumption he'd held about alien domestic architecture. The main room opened upward like the interior of a vast flower, with levels and platforms connected by gracefully curved ramps rather than stairs. Soft, bioluminescent growth provided illumination from walls and ceiling, creating an atmosphere that felt more like a forest clearing than an enclosed space. But it was the figure standing in the center of the room that truly captured his attention. She was unlike any being he'd ever encountered. Tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shift between deep violet and silvery blue depending on the angle of the light. Her hair moved with a life of its own, flowing tendrils that sparkled with what appeared to be embedded stars or crystals. Four arms extended from her torso, each moving with independent grace, and her eyes held depths that reminded Marcus of looking into space itself. "You are human," she observed, her voice carrying that same musical quality he'd heard through the membrane. "This is unexpected. Is that a problem?" Marcus asked, prepared for another rejection. "No," she said after a moment of consideration. "Merely surprising. I am Zarathul Moonweaver, though you may find my full designation difficult to pronounce. You may call me Zara if it is more comfortable for you." "Thank you. Marcus Chen, as I mentioned. I have to ask, why is species adaptability more important to you than specific qualifications?" Zara moved to what appeared to be a seating area, gesturing for him to join her. The furniture adapted to his human physiology as he sat, molding itself to provide optimal support. "Because," she said, her four hands weaving through the air in what he realized was part of her communication method, "my children are not entirely Lunari." "Lunari?" "My species. We are, what you might call moon-touched. We draw sustenance and strength from lunar energies, and our life cycles are tied to celestial movements. But my late mate was Corvin, and our children have inherited characteristics from both bloodlines. They require care that understands multiple biological and cultural needs." Marcus nodded slowly. "Hybrid children. That must present unique challenges." "Indeed." Zara's starlit hair dimmed slightly, and Marcus sensed he was witnessing an expression of sadness. "Their father died in an industrial accident 8 months ago. Since then, I have struggled to provide the full range of care they require." The Lunari approach to child-rearing emphasizes gentle guidance and emotional nurturing. The Corvin approach values strength, direct challenge, and physical resilience. I find myself inadequate to provide both. "How many children?" Marcus asked. 3. Kyleth is 14 in your years, entering the Corvin age of proving. Nira is 9, still primarily expressing Lunari characteristics but beginning to show Corvin traits. And little Dex is 5, and seems to shift between both natures unpredictably. As if summoned by the mention of their names, Marcus became aware of movement in the upper levels of the dwelling. A face peered down from one of the platforms, angular features that spoke of Corvin heritage, but with the luminous skin tone of the Lunari. The child watched him with undisguised curiosity. "That is Nira," Zara said softly. "She has been most affected by her father's death. Lunari children bond deeply with both parents, and the loss has left her diminished." "What exactly would my responsibilities be?" Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect this job interview was unlike any he'd ever experienced. "Daily care, education support, protection, guidance. But, more than that." Zara paused, her hands weaving more complex patterns in the air. My children need someone who can help them understand how to be strong like their father while remaining gentle like their mother. They need someone who can bridge the gap between two very different ways of being. Why do you think a human could do that? Because, Zara said, and, for the first time since he'd arrived, Marcus detected what might have been a smile in her expression. Humans are known throughout the galaxy for their remarkable adaptability. You take the best from every species you encounter and make it your own. More importantly, you form bonds that transcend biological boundaries. My children need someone who will care for them not because of duty or payment, but because they choose to love them as family. Marcus felt something stir in his chest, a warmth he hadn't experienced since leaving Earth years ago. You're not just hiring a household manager, are you? No, Zara admitted. I am seeking someone who might become what humans call a stepfather. Someone who will help me raise my children to honor both their heritages while finding their own paths. It is a permanent position, if you are willing. The weight of what she was offering settled over Marcus like a blanket. Not just a job, but a family. A home. A purpose that went far beyond earning credits for survival. He thought about his lonely months drifting from station to station, the growing desperation, the feeling that he'd been cut adrift from everything that gave life meaning. I should meet them first, he said. The children. They should have a say in this. Zara's expression brightened, and Marcus realized he'd said something important. That is exactly the response I hoped for. Children, please come down. Someone would like to meet you. The movement from the upper levels increased, and, within moments, Marcus found himself face to face with three of the most remarkable children he'd ever seen. The oldest, Kyleth, had the strong build and craggy features of the Corvin but moved with the fluid grace Marcus had observed in Zara. The middle child, Nira, seemed almost to glow from within, her Lunari characteristics dominant but with an underlying sturdiness that spoke of her dual heritage. And little Dex was a study in contrasts, sometimes appearing solid and earthbound like a young Corvin, sometimes seeming almost ethereal like his mother's people. Children, Zara said formally, this is Marcus Chen. He is human, from a planet called Earth. He has come to discuss the possibility of joining our family. Are you going to be our new father? Dex asked with the directness of a 5-year-old. Marcus glanced at Zara, then knelt down to be at eye level with the youngest child. I don't know yet. That depends on whether you think you might like having me around, and whether I think I can be the kind of person your family needs. What can you do? Kyleth asked, his posture suggesting the challenging stance Marcus associated with teenage skepticism regardless of species. I can fix things when they break. I can cook, not fancy food, but filling meals. I can teach you about human customs and Earth animals. I can help with homework if you need it. And I'm good at listening when people need to talk. Do you know any stories? Nira asked quietly. Hundreds, Marcus replied truthfully. Adventure stories, funny stories, stories about brave people doing impossible things, stories about friendship and family and hope. What about fighting? Kyleth pressed. Can you protect us if dangerous things happen? Marcus considered the question seriously. I'm not a trained warrior, but I've worked in dangerous places and learned to handle myself. More importantly, I would never let anyone hurt you if I could prevent it. That's a promise I would make to any family I joined. The three children exchanged glances, and Marcus realized they were communicating in some way he couldn't perceive, perhaps through subtle Lunari empathic abilities or simply the silent language siblings develop. He feels safe, Nira said finally. He smells like metal and stars, Dex added, which seemed to be a positive observation. Kyleth studied Marcus with an intensity that reminded him of job interviews with particularly demanding supervisors. You would really stay? Not just until you find something better? If I say yes to this, Marcus replied, meeting the teenager's gaze directly, it means I'm saying yes to being part of your family for as long as you'll have me. I don't make promises I can't keep. Mother, Kyleth said, turning to Zara, I think we should try it. Zara's relief was palpable, her bioluminescent hair brightening noticeably. Then, perhaps, Marcus Chen, we should discuss the practical details of this arrangement. They spent the next hour covering the basics, living arrangements, compensation, daily routines, and the unique needs of each child. Marcus would have his own quarters within the dwelling, access to the family's educational and recreational resources, and a modest but comfortable salary. More importantly, he would have the full authority and responsibility that came with being a parental figure. There is one more thing, Zara said as the conversation wound down. The Lunari approach to family integration includes a bonding ceremony. It would connect you empathically to the family unit. You would feel our joys and sorrows as your own, and we would feel yours. It is not required, but it would make the relationship deeper and more permanent. Marcus thought about that. An empathic bond with an alien family, it was beyond anything he'd ever imagined when he'd started looking for work that morning. But, looking at Zara and her children, seeing the hope in their expressions and feeling the warmth of belonging that was already beginning to grow in his chest, the choice seemed obvious. When do we start? Zara's smile was like starlight breaking through clouds. Tomorrow, if you wish. Tonight, you should gather your belongings and say farewell to your previous lodgings. Tomorrow, you become part of our family. As Marcus left the dwelling that night, walking back through the station corridors toward his tiny, temporary room, he felt lighter than he had in months. The job search was over, but, more than that, his long journey from one temporary situation to another was finally ending. He was going home. Marcus arrived at his new home early the next morning, carrying a single duffel bag that contained everything he owned. The contrast between his meager possessions and the elegant organic architecture of the dwelling struck him as he approached the shimmering entrance membrane. His entire life fit into one bag, while theirs was built into the very structure around them. Zara greeted him wearing what appeared to be ceremonial robes, flowing garments that seemed to be woven from captured moonlight, shifting and shimmering with each movement. Her hair was arranged in intricate patterns that Marcus was beginning to recognize as forms of artistic expression among her people. "Welcome home, Marcus Chen," she said formally, and the words carried a weight that made his chest tighten with unexpected emotion. "Are you prepared for the bonding ceremony?" "As ready as someone can be for something they've never experienced before," he replied, setting down his bag. "What should I expect?" "The Lunari connection is not invasive," Zara explained, leading him to the center of the main living area where her children waited. "You will not lose your individual thoughts or memories. Rather, you will become aware of the emotional undercurrents that flow between family members. Joy shared becomes greater, sorrow shared becomes bearable." Kyleth, Nira, and Little Dex stood in a triangle formation, each holding what appeared to be a crystal that pulsed with soft light. The crystals were clearly attuned to each child. Kyleth's stone glowed with the warm, steady light of a forge fire, Nira's sparkled with the gentle radiance of moonlight on water, and Dex's flickered unpredictably between different colors and intensities. "Each family member carries a bonding stone," Zara continued, producing her own crystal from within her robes. Unlike the children's stones, hers seemed to contain an entire galaxy of tiny stars, swirling slowly in cosmic dance. "When you join our family bond, you will receive one as well. It will grow and change as you do, becoming a unique expression of your place within our unity." Marcus nodded, though privately he wondered what kind of stone would represent a human joining this extraordinary family. "What do I need to do?" "Simply be yourself," Zara said. "The bond responds to truth and genuine intention. If you hold any reservations or false feelings, it will know." The family formed a circle around Marcus, each holding their crystal at heart level. Zara began to speak in her native language, and Marcus was surprised to find that his translation device wasn't activating. Instead, he found himself understanding the words through some deeper channel, as if their meaning was being transmitted directly to his consciousness. "We welcome one who was alone," Zara intoned, "into the warmth of our joining. We offer him our joy to share, our sorrow to ease, our strength to draw upon, and our love to shelter within. We accept his joy as our celebration," Kyleth continued, his young voice carrying unexpected gravity, "his sorrow as our responsibility, his strength as our protection, and his love as our treasure." "Two hearts become four become five," Nira added, her voice so soft it was barely audible. "What was separate becomes whole. New father. New brother. New friend," Dex declared with 5-year-old enthusiasm, and Marcus couldn't help but smile despite the solemnity of the moment. The crystals began to pulse in unison, their light growing brighter and more synchronized with each passing second. Marcus felt a strange sensation, as if invisible threads were weaving themselves between his heart and each member of the family. Not invasive, as Zara had promised, but definitely present, like becoming aware of additional senses he hadn't known he possessed. From Zara, he sensed deep gratitude mixed with lingering grief and hope for the future. From Kyleth, teenage bravado covering uncertainty and the desperate desire to be strong enough to protect his mother and siblings. From Nira, a profound sadness that seemed too large for such a young spirit, but also a growing spark of curiosity about him. From Dex, pure uncomplicated joy and excitement at having a new person to play with and explore the world alongside. The sensation intensified until Marcus felt as though he might be overwhelmed by the emotional complexity of 4 other lives suddenly overlaying his own. Just when he thought he might need to step back, the feeling settled into something more manageable, a gentle awareness that hummed quietly in the background of his consciousness. A new weight settled into his hand, and Marcus looked down to see that he was now holding a crystal of his own. Unlike the others, his stone seemed to be constantly changing, sometimes appearing like compressed starlight, sometimes like the warm glow of Earth's sun, sometimes like the steady blue radiance of a fusion reactor core. It was uniquely his, and somehow perfectly right. "The bond is made," Zara announced, and Marcus could hear the relief in her voice. "Welcome to our family, Marcus Chen." The formal atmosphere dissolved immediately as Dex launched himself at Marcus with a delighted squeal, wrapping small arms around his waist. "Can you tell us a story now? Can you make breakfast? Do you want to see my collection of station maintenance bugs?" Marcus laughed, ruffling the child's hair, and then paused in surprise as he felt the texture. Dex's hair was unlike anything he'd ever touched, seeming to shift between the metallic roughness of Corvin hair and the silk-fine softness of Lanari locks depending on the child's mood. "Station maintenance bugs?" Marcus asked. "They're not really bugs," Kyleth explained. "They're small maintenance drones that fix minor problems in the station infrastructure. Dex has been collecting deactivated ones. They're beautiful," Dex insisted. "Each one has different tools and different ways of moving. Some crawl, some fly, some roll around like little balls. And they all have their own personalities." Marcus found himself genuinely interested. During his mining career, he'd worked with countless automated systems and had developed an appreciation for the elegant engineering that went into even the simplest mechanical devices. "I'd love to see them. And, yes, I can make breakfast, though I should warn you that human cooking might be different from what you're used to. We have been eating mostly prepared meals from the station's food service," Zara admitted. "My people traditionally sustain ourselves primarily through lunar energy absorption, supplemented by light foods. I confess I have struggled to provide the more substantial nutrition that growing Corvin physiology requires." "What about fresh ingredients?" Marcus asked. "Is there a market or cultivation area on the station?" "Level 12 has an agricultural district," Nira said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken directly to him since the bonding ceremony. "They grow food from many different worlds there." "Perfect. Why don't we all go shopping together?" I can learn about your preferences, you can learn about human cooking techniques, and we can pick out something everyone will enjoy. The trip to the agricultural district turned into an adventure that revealed as much about his new family as hours of formal conversation might have. Dex ran ahead, fascinated by every vendor stall and display case, asking endless questions about growing techniques and plant biology. Nira stayed close to Marcus's side, clearly still uncertain about him but gradually becoming more talkative as she realized he was genuinely interested in her observations. Kyleth took on the role of family protector, watching for potential dangers and making sure his siblings didn't wander too far into the crowds. Marcus noticed that the teenager positioned himself so that he could quickly reach any family member who might need help, and felt a surge of respect for the young person's sense of responsibility. Zara moved through the market like a graceful ghost, drawing admiring looks from other shoppers. Marcus was becoming aware that Lenari were apparently considered quite beautiful by galactic standards, and that Zara in particular was someone of notable elegance and poise. The knowledge that this remarkable woman had chosen to trust him with her family's well-being was both humbling and inspiring. They selected ingredients for what Marcus privately called fusion cuisine, combining elements that would appeal to both Lenari and Corvin tastes while remaining within his own cooking abilities. Protein-rich fungi that the Corvin preferred, delicate luminescent vegetables that provided the trace minerals Lenari required, and some basic starches that could serve as a foundation for the meal. Back at home, Marcus discovered that the kitchen was unlike any food preparation area he'd ever seen. Instead of traditional heating elements, it featured what appeared to be crystalline formations that could be tuned to provide precise temperature control. Rather than standard cutting surfaces, the counters could be programmed to provide different textures and support levels for various types of food preparation. "This is remarkable," Marcus said, running his hands over the adaptive cooking surfaces. "It's like the kitchen itself is alive." Lenari technology tends toward biological integration, Zara explained. "We find it more harmonious to work with living systems rather than purely mechanical ones. Can you teach me how to use it?" The cooking lesson that followed became the first real bonding experience for the newly formed family. Zara showed Marcus how to attune the crystal heating elements by humming specific tones. Kyleth demonstrated the proper way to prepare Corvin spices, which required a particular crushing technique to release their full flavor. Nira proved to have an exceptional sense of smell that could detect the precise moment when various ingredients reached optimal readiness. And Dex helped by providing a constant stream of commentary, questions, and observations that kept everyone laughing despite the complexity of coordinating multiple cooking techniques simultaneously. "The mushrooms are singing," Dex announced at one point, and Marcus realized that the protein-rich fungi really were producing faint harmonic tones as they cooked. "They're happy to be dinner. That's the moisture escaping in precise patterns," Kyleth explained to his little brother. "The resonance frequency tells you when they're done." Marcus found himself fascinated by the intersection of science and artistry that seemed to characterize everything in the household. Even the simplest tasks involved layers of complexity that spoke of cultures with completely different approaches to problem-solving and daily life. The meal they produced together was unlike anything Marcus had ever eaten. The flavors were subtle and complex, shifting on his palate as different ingredients interacted. The textures ranged from the hearty substantiality that Corvin digestion required to the almost ethereal delicacy that Lenari physiology preferred. "This is wonderful," Zara said after her first bite. "The children have not had a meal with this much variety in months." "It tastes like adventure," Dex declared solemnly. "Like trying something new that might be dangerous but turns out to be really good." Marcus laughed. "That might be the best compliment I've ever received for my cooking." As they ate, Marcus became increasingly aware of the family bond functioning in subtle ways. He could sense Kyleth's surprise and approval at discovering that Marcus could produce satisfying, substantial food. Nira's quiet contentment radiated through the connection as she enjoyed flavors and textures she had missed. Dex's uncomplicated joy at having a new person to share experiences with was like warm sunshine in the background of Marcus's consciousness. And, from Zara, a deep satisfaction that went beyond the meal itself. Through the bond, Marcus sensed her relief at seeing her children happy and engaged in a way they hadn't been for months. More than that, he felt her growing confidence that she had made the right choice in inviting him into their family. After dinner, they settled into what appeared to be a family ritual, gathering in the main living area for story time. Marcus had mentioned his repertoire of stories during the initial interview, but he hadn't expected it to become such an important part of the daily routine. "Tell us about Earth animals," Nero requested. "We've heard of them, but we've never seen any." Marcus found himself describing elephants, whales, wolves, and eagles, creatures that seemed almost mythical to children who had grown up in the sterile environment of space stations. He told them about forests that stretched to the horizon, oceans deeper than any space between stars, and mountains that pierced the sky. "Were you sad to leave Earth?" Dex asked. The question caught Marcus off guard. He paused, considering his answer carefully. "Sometimes. I miss certain things, the feel of wind that wasn't recycled through atmospheric processors, the smell of rain, the way sunlight looks when it's filtered through leaves. But I left Earth to find my place in the larger galaxy. I wanted to see what was possible out here among the stars." "Did you find it?" Kyleth asked. "Your place, I mean." Marcus looked around the organic curves of the living room, at the three children curled up comfortably nearby, at Zara with her starlit hair and gentle expression. Through the family bond, he could feel their attention focused on him, their growing attachment and acceptance. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think I did." The next few days fell into a pattern that felt surprisingly natural. Marcus woke early to prepare breakfast, using techniques Zara taught him to combine human cooking methods with Lanari food preparation. The children seemed to thrive on the routine of regular, varied meals that satisfied both their biological needs and their curiosity about new experiences. Kyleth was enrolled in advanced technical studies, preparing for adult certification in engineering systems. Marcus found that his practical experience with industrial equipment provided valuable context for the theoretical concepts the teenager was studying. Their homework sessions became collaborative problem-solving exercises that drew on both human ingenuity and Corvan methodical thinking. Nero was studying what could best be described as environmental harmony, learning how different species and ecosystems maintained balance. Her Lanari heritage gave her an intuitive understanding of energy flows and interconnected systems that amazed Marcus. He contributed by sharing Earth's biological and ecological examples, giving her a wider range of reference points for her studies. Dex, at 5 years old, was in the equivalent of kindergarten but with a curriculum that spanned multiple species educational approaches. Marcus discovered that the child had an exceptional aptitude for understanding mechanical systems and processes, often asking questions about how things worked that demonstrated remarkably sophisticated thinking. "Why do the station's gravity generators hum in different tones in different sections?" Dex asked one morning over breakfast. Marcus paused, his spoon halfway to his mouth. "That's actually a really good observation. I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Each gravity generator is calibrated for the dominant species in that section," Zara explained. "Different physiologies require slight variations in gravitational force and frequency. The humming tones are harmonics created by those calibrations." "So the station is singing different songs for different people?" Dex asked. "In a way, yes." Marcus marveled at the child's ability to find poetic meaning in technical explanations. It was a distinctly Lanari trait, he was learning, the tendency to perceive artistic and emotional dimensions in even the most practical matters. The family bond continued to deepen as the days passed. Marcus began to understand the subtle ways that Lanari communicated emotion through the slight changes in their bioluminescence, and how Corvan expressed affection through challenging but supportive interactions. He learned to read the signs that indicated when one of the children needed encouragement, comfort, or simply space to work through their own thoughts and feelings. More importantly, he began to contribute his own emotional strengths to the family dynamic. His steady reliability provided a foundation that allowed the others to express their more volatile feelings safely. His genuine interest in learning about their cultures and capabilities made each family member feel valued and seen. And his protective instincts, honed by years of working in dangerous environments, gave them all a sense of security they had been missing since their father's death. One evening, as Marcus tucked Dex into bed, the child looked up at him with large, serious eyes. "Are you going to stay forever?" Dex asked. Marcus considered the question carefully. Forever was a long time, and life had taught him that circumstances could change in unexpected ways. But, looking down at this remarkable child, feeling the warm certainty of the family bond humming in the background of his consciousness, he knew his answer was true. "As long as you want me here, I'm not going anywhere," he promised. Dex smiled and settled into sleep with the confidence of a child who felt completely safe and loved. 3 weeks into his new life, Marcus encountered his first real challenge as a stepfather when Kyleth came home from his advanced technical studies program with bruised knuckles and a defiant expression that immediately put Marcus on alert through the family bond. "What happened?" Marcus asked, setting down the maintenance manual he'd been reading while waiting for the children to return from their various educational programs. "Nothing," Kyleth replied curtly, heading toward the ramps that led to the upper levels of the dwelling. Marcus felt the teenagers' emotional state through their connection, a mixture of anger, humiliation, and fierce protective instincts that reminded him strongly of his own adolescent struggles with bullies. "Kyleth," he said gently. "I can feel that something significant happened. I'm not asking to pry into your business. I'm asking because I'm concerned about you." The teenager paused on the ramp, his shoulders tense. "Some of the other students made comments about our family situation." "What kind of comments?" "They said it was inappropriate for mother to take in a human male. They suggested." Kyletha's voice trailed off, but, through the bond, Marcus could sense the specific nature of the insults that had been directed at Zara. Marcus felt his own anger spike, but he forced himself to remain calm. Getting angry on Kyletha's behalf wouldn't help the situation, and it might undermine the teenager's own sense of agency in dealing with the problem. "So you hit someone," Marcus observed neutrally. "3 someones, actually. I may have overreacted." Kyleth turned to face Marcus, and the human could see the internal conflict playing out in the young person's expression. "I know mother would prefer that I handle such situations through peaceful dialogue. But, my Corvin heritage." He gestured helplessly. "Demands that you defend your family's honor through direct action," Marcus finished. "I understand. The question is, did it solve the problem or make it worse?" Kyletha's laugh was bitter. "Worse. Much worse. I'm suspended from the program for 3 days, and the other students are now convinced that our entire family is unstable and dangerous." Marcus considered the situation carefully. In his experience, teenage social dynamics were complex regardless of species, but adding interspecies cultural conflicts created layers of difficulty that required careful navigation. "What would your father have done in this situation?" Marcus asked. Kyleth looked surprised by the question. "He would have said that actions have consequences, and that defending family honor is always right even when it's not wise. But he also would have found a way to make the other students respect rather than fear me." "How?" "By demonstrating superior competence. Father believed that the best way to handle insults was to prove them wrong through excellent performance." Kyletha's expression grew more thoughtful. "He would have helped me find ways to excel that would make the other students want to be my ally rather than my enemy." "That sounds like a good approach. What are you best at in your technical studies?" "Systems integration. I have an intuitive understanding of how different technological approaches can be combined to create more efficient solutions. Kyleth paused. It probably comes from being raised with both Lanari biotech and Corvin mechanical engineering. So your mixed heritage, the thing they're mocking you for, is actually your greatest strength in your chosen field, Marcus observed. That's something we can work with. They spent the next hour developing a strategy that honored both Kyleth's need to defend his family and his goal of succeeding in his educational program. Rather than responding to future provocations with violence, he would channel his mixed heritage into exceptional technical achievements that would demonstrate the value of cross-cultural integration. There's a systems design competition coming up in 2 months, Kyleth said, becoming more animated as they talked. Teams are supposed to design solutions for improving station infrastructure efficiency. Most teams will focus on either biological integration or mechanical optimization, but not both. But you could do both, Marcus said. With help, maybe. I understand the principles, but I'd need practical experience with actual implementation. Kyleth looked at Marcus hopefully. Your mining experience included a lot of systems integration work, didn't it? Absolutely. And Zara's knowledge of biotech applications would be invaluable for the living systems components. Marcus felt a surge of excitement as the plan came together. This could be a family project. We could all contribute our different areas of expertise. When Zara and the younger children returned that evening, the family gathered to discuss both the immediate problem and the longer-term solution. Nira proved to have unexpected insights into the social dynamics at play. Her Lanari empathic abilities allowed her to sense the underlying insecurities that drove the other students to attack Kyleth's family situation. They're afraid, she said with surprising wisdom for a 9-year-old. Fear makes people say cruel things to try to make others feel smaller so they can feel bigger. What are they afraid of? Marcus asked. Change. Different ways of being family. The possibility that their own families might not be as strong as they thought. Dex, not entirely understanding the complexity of the situation but sensing the emotional undercurrents, offered his own solution. We could show them Kyleth's collection of maintenance bugs. Then, they'd know how interesting our family is. The suggestion drew laughter from everyone, but Marcus realized the child had actually identified something important. Their family was interesting, in the best possible way. They represented something new and wonderful, the successful integration of different species, cultures, and perspectives into something stronger than any of its component parts. You know what? Marcus said. I think Dex is right. Not about the maintenance bugs specifically, but about showing them who we really are. When you compete in that design competition, Kyleth, you're not just representing yourself. You're representing our family and everything we've learned from each other. The conversation was interrupted by the appearance of 2 figures at the dwelling's entrance membrane, station security officers wearing the distinctive uniforms of the peacekeeping force. Zarathul Moonweaver, the lead officer asked as the membrane became transparent. We need to speak with you regarding an incident involving your son. Marcus felt Kyleth's anxiety spike through the family bond, but Zara moved forward with the graceful composure that seemed to characterize everything she did. Of course, she said formally. Please, enter our home. The security officers stepped through the membrane, and Marcus noticed immediately that they were being very respectful, removing their helmets and waiting to be invited further into the living space. These weren't hostile investigators, they were officials dealing with a minor disciplinary matter between students. The incident at the Technical Academy, the lead officer said, consulting her data pad. 3 students were injured in an altercation with Kyleth. While the injuries were minor, the school administration has requested that we conduct a formal assessment to determine if there are any underlying family stability issues that might be contributing to aggressive behavior. Marcus felt his protective instincts surge, but he caught Zara's subtle hand signal requesting that he remain quiet for the moment. What specific concerns have been raised? Zara asked calmly. Questions about the appropriateness of your current household composition, the officer said, clearly uncomfortable with the nature of her inquiry. Some parents have expressed concerns about the influence of unregulated cross-species domestic arrangements on their own children. The careful diplomatic language couldn't disguise the ugly reality of what was happening. Prejudice and fear were being dressed up as legitimate concerns about child welfare. Marcus stepped forward. "Officer, I'm Marcus Chen. I'm the human these concerned parents are worried about. What specific regulations are we supposed to be violating?" The officer consulted her data pad again. There are no specific regulations being violated. However, Galactic Family Services has recommended protocols for cross-species adoption and guardianship arrangements that require formal evaluation and ongoing supervision. "I see," Zara said, and Marcus could sense through the bond that she was far more angry than her calm exterior suggested. "And when was this recommendation made?" 6 weeks ago, the officer admitted. "It appears to have been triggered by public discussions about the prevalence of non-traditional family structures in station residential areas." Marcus felt pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. Someone had been using their family as a case study to promote restrictive policies about interspecies relationships. Kyletha's fight at school wasn't an isolated incident, it was part of a larger campaign of harassment designed to force them to conform to more traditional arrangements. "What exactly does this evaluation entail?" Marcus asked. "Home visit, interviews with all family members, psychological assessment, and review of domestic arrangements." The officer looked genuinely apologetic. "I should mention that the evaluation is being conducted by Dr. Korvash, who specializes in Corvan family structures. He may not be entirely familiar with Lanari customs or human psychology." Through the family bond, Marcus felt Kyletha's guilt intensify. The teenager was blaming himself for bringing this scrutiny down on the family. Nira's anxiety was growing as well. The prospect of strangers questioning the legitimacy of their home was triggering memories of the instability she'd felt after her father's death. "When is this evaluation scheduled?" Zara asked. "Tomorrow afternoon. Dr. Korvash will arrive at 1400 hours station time." After the security officers left, the family gathered in their main living area to discuss the situation. The atmosphere was tense, with each member of the family processing the threat to their newfound stability in their own way. "This is my fault," Kyleth said miserably. "If I hadn't started that fight." "No," Marcus said firmly. "This was going to happen regardless. Someone has been planning this campaign against non-traditional families, and we just provided them with a convenient excuse to implement it." "What do we do?" Nira asked quietly. Marcus looked around at his family, the remarkable woman who had trusted him with her children's well-being, the teenagers struggling to find their place in a complex galaxy, the 5-year-old who saw wonder and possibility in everything around him. 6 weeks ago, he'd been an unemployed drifter with no purpose beyond basic survival. Now he had something worth fighting for. "We show them exactly who we are," he said. "Not what they expect us to be, not what they think we should be, but who we actually are. A family that works." Zara's expression grew more determined. "The evaluation tomorrow will be challenging. Dr. Korvash is known for his conservative views on family structure. He believes strongly in species-specific child-rearing approaches." "What does that mean for us?" Marcus asked. "It means he will be looking for evidence that our children are being harmed by exposure to inappropriate cultural influences. He will be particularly concerned about you, Marcus, as the non-biological male figure in the household." Marcus felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. What kind of evidence would convince him that we're a functional family? Demonstration of proper child development, appropriate cultural education, emotional stability, and strong parental authority structure. Zara paused. "The problem is that Lanari family dynamics tend to be more egalitarian and emotionally fluid than Corvan traditions expect. Dr. Korvash may interpret our natural family style as evidence of insufficient structure and discipline. So we need to be more formally organized than usual during the evaluation, Marcus said. Not fake, just emphasized. They spent the evening preparing for the evaluation, reviewing the children's academic progress, organizing documentation of their health and well-being, and discussing how to present their family dynamics in the most positive possible light. Remember, Zara told the children as they prepared for bed, tomorrow we are not just representing ourselves. We are representing the possibility that different species can create strong, loving families together. Many people will benefit if we succeed in proving that love and commitment matter more than biological similarity. As Marcus settled into his own sleeping area that night, he felt the weight of responsibility settling over him like a heavy blanket. Tomorrow's evaluation would determine whether this remarkable family he'd stumbled into would be allowed to continue, or whether bureaucratic prejudice would tear apart something beautiful and functional simply because it didn't fit traditional patterns. Through the family bond, he could sense the others struggling with similar worries. But, underneath the anxiety, he felt something stronger, the unshakable conviction that what they had built together was real and valuable and worth defending. Tomorrow would be a test, but they would face it together. Dr. Korvash arrived precisely at 1400 hours, his massive Corvin frame filling the entrance membrane as he waited for permission to enter. Marcus felt the family's collective tension spike through their bond as they recognized the deliberately intimidating nature of the evaluator's approach. Showing up exactly on time demonstrated bureaucratic precision, while his imposing physical presence established dominance from the first moment. Zarathul Moonweaver, Dr. Korvash said formally, not waiting for a greeting. I am here to conduct the mandatory family stability evaluation. I require access to all family members and all areas of the dwelling. Zara maintained her composed dignity despite the obvious hostility in the evaluator's manner. Of course. Please, enter our home. Our family is prepared to assist with your assessment. Dr. Korvash stepped through the membrane and immediately began taking notes on a traditional Corvin data slate, a deliberate choice that signaled his preference for conventional approaches over the more integrated biotech systems common on the station. Marcus studied the evaluator as he surveyed the living space. Dr. Korvash was clearly an older Corvin, his rock-like skin bearing the deep ridges that indicated advanced age and high status within his culture. His movements were precise and methodical, and his expression suggested someone who had already formed conclusions before beginning his investigation. The dwelling structure is non-standard, Dr. Korvash noted aloud, apparently for the benefit of his recording device. Organic architecture may indicate primitive or regressive lifestyle choices. Marcus felt Kyletha's anger flare through the family bond, but the teenager controlled himself admirably. They had prepared for this kind of deliberately provocative commentary. The dwelling incorporates both Lenari biointegration and Corvin structural engineering principles, Zara replied calmly. We believe that exposing our children to diverse technological approaches expands their educational opportunities. Dr. Korvash made additional notes. I will need to interview each family member individually, beginning with the children. Parental figures will be interviewed separately to ensure independent assessment of family dynamics. The individual interviews took place in the dwelling's secondary chamber, a smaller space that could be configured for privacy. Marcus felt the anxiety of each family member as they took their turn with Dr. Korvash, but he couldn't sense the specific content of their conversations through the family bond. The evaluator had brought a small device that blocked empathic connections within the interview area. Dex went first, emerging after 20 minutes with a confused expression that suggested the 5-year-old hadn't entirely understood the purpose of the questions he'd been asked. Nira returned from her session looking pale and shaken, her natural Lenari sensitivity clearly overwhelmed by Dr. Korvash's aggressive interview style. Kyleth spent nearly an hour in the interview chamber, and, when he emerged, Marcus could feel through their connection that the teenager had been subjected to intense questioning about the family's dynamics, particularly regarding Marcus's role as a non-biological parental figure. Marcus Chen, Dr. Corvash called finally. "You will be interviewed next." Marcus entered the chamber and found Dr. Corvash seated behind a portable desk that somehow made the organic curves of the room seem alien and uncomfortable. The evaluator gestured to a simple chair positioned directly in front of the desk, a setup clearly designed to establish a power dynamic favorable to the interviewer. "State your full name and species designation for the record," Dr. Corvash began without preamble. "Marcus Chen, human, Terran origin. Duration of residence in this household? 6 weeks. Previous relationship to the family unit? None. I responded to an employment posting." Dr. Corvash looked up from his data slate for the first time, his craggy features displaying open skepticism. "You claim that you accepted a position managing household duties and child supervision for a family of complete strangers?" "That's correct." "What were your qualifications for this position?" Marcus had prepared for this question carefully. 10 years of experience working in mixed-species environments in asteroid mining operations. Practical knowledge of life support systems, safety protocols, and crisis management. Previous experience raising younger siblings following the death of my parents. Yet you have no formal certification in child psychology, educational support, or cross-species cultural competency? No formal certification, no. But practical experience working successfully with diverse groups in challenging environments. Dr. Corvash made extensive notes before continuing. "Describe your current role within the family structure." "I provide daily household management, educational support for the children, and serve as a secondary parental figure to supplement Zara's primary guardianship." "Secondary parental figure," Dr. Corvash repeated, his tone suggesting disapproval. "In Corvan culture, children require clear authority hierarchies with defined roles and responsibilities. Your presence appears to create ambiguity in the family command structure." Marcus felt his temper begin to rise, but forced himself to respond calmly. "In this family, we've found that collaborative parenting approaches work well for children who are integrating multiple cultural heritages. The children benefit from having access to both Lenari empathic guidance and Corvan strength-based mentorship." "And what qualifies you to provide either type of guidance?" "Nothing qualifies me except the fact that I care about these children and I'm committed to their well-being. I'm not trying to replace their father or change their cultural identity. I'm trying to support them as they figure out who they want to become." Dr. Corvash's expression grew even more disapproving. Emotional attachment is not an adequate foundation for child-rearing responsibilities. Proper development requires structured educational protocols, consistent disciplinary frameworks, and appropriate role modeling. With respect, Dr. Corvash, this family has been thriving since I joined them. The children are academically successful, emotionally stable, and developing strong cultural identities that honor both their heritages. What specific evidence of dysfunction are you looking for? The evidence, Dr. Corvash said coldly, is apparent in the recent violent incident involving the eldest child. Kyletha's aggressive behavior at the educational facility demonstrates the failure of your household's disciplinary structure. Marcus felt his protective instincts surge. Kyleth defended his family's honor against attackers who were using racial slurs and making inappropriate comments about his mother. In Corvan culture, such defense is not only appropriate but required. Corvan cultural values emphasize measured response and strategic thinking, not uncontrolled violence. Kyletha's actions suggest emotional instability resulting from confused cultural messaging within the household. Or they suggest a teenager who loves his family enough to fight for them when they're being attacked. Dr. Corvash set down his stylus and looked directly at Marcus. "Mr. Chen, your emotional involvement with this family is precisely the problem I'm here to address. You have no understanding of proper Corvan child development principles, no training in Lenari emotional management techniques, and no legal authority to make decisions regarding these children's welfare. Your presence in this household represents an ongoing disruption to proper family functioning. Marcus felt his anger crystallize into something clearer and more focused. "You're right about one thing, Dr. Corvash. I don't have formal training in alien psychology or official certification in cross-species family dynamics. What I have is 6 weeks of experience watching 3 remarkable children flourish in an environment where they're loved, supported, and encouraged to develop their full potential. 6 weeks is an inadequate timeframe for assessment of long-term developmental outcomes. Maybe. But it's been adequate time for me to learn that Kyleth has extraordinary technical abilities that are enhanced by his mixed heritage, not hindered by it. That Nira has profound emotional intelligence that allows her to help others feel understood and valued. That Dex has curiosity and insight that suggest he'll grow up to be someone who brings wonder and innovation to whatever he chooses to pursue." Marcus stood up from the chair, no longer willing to accept the power dynamic Dr. Corvash was trying to establish. "You want to know what qualifies me to help raise these children? The fact that I see them as individuals with unique gifts, not as problems to be solved or standardized according to some bureaucratic checklist." "Sit down, Mr. Chen. I'm not finished with this interview." "Yes, you are." Marcus moved toward the chamber's exit. "You came here with predetermined conclusions based on prejudice against non-traditional families. You're not conducting an evaluation, you're looking for justification to break up a home where children are happy and thriving." Marcus left the interview chamber and rejoined his family in the main living area. Through the family bond, he could feel their anxiety about what had transpired during his confrontational session with Dr. Corvash. "How did it go?" Zara asked quietly. "About as well as you'd expect," Marcus replied. "He's already made up his mind about us." Dr. Corvash emerged from the interview chamber a few minutes later, his expression grim with official disapproval. "Zarathul Moonweaver, I need to complete my assessment by interviewing you regarding the household management and parental oversight protocols." Zara's interview lasted nearly 2 hours. Marcus spent the time helping the children with their studies and trying to maintain normal household routines despite the evaluation process. Through the family bond, he could sense the stress affecting all of them, but also their determination to present their best selves despite the hostile circumstances. When Zara finally emerged from the interview chamber, Dr. Corvash began his final walkthrough of the dwelling, examining living spaces, sleeping arrangements, food preparation areas, and educational resources. He made extensive notes about everything he observed, his commentary growing increasingly critical. Educational materials show excessive diversity without adequate focus on species-appropriate learning modalities, he dictated to his recording device. Food preparation systems blend incompatible cultural approaches. Sleeping arrangements lack proper privacy boundaries between parental figures and children. Marcus felt his family's growing distress through their bond, but he also sensed something else, a quiet determination that reminded him of the moment they had first formed their connection. Whatever happened, they would face it together. Dar. Corvash concluded his evaluation by gathering the entire family in the main living area for his preliminary assessment. "Based on my investigation," he announced formally, "I find significant concerns regarding the stability and appropriateness of this household arrangement. The presence of an uncertified, non-biological male figure creates confusion in parental authority structures. The mixing of incompatible cultural approaches to child rearing shows evidence of diluting proper species-specific development protocols." He consulted his notes before continuing. "I am particularly concerned about the emotional instability demonstrated by the eldest child's recent violent behavior, which appears directly connected to the stress of adapting to inappropriate family dynamics." Marcus felt Kyletha's guilt and self-blame intensify through the family bond, and made a decision that he knew might make things worse but felt necessary anyway. "Dr. Corvash," he interrupted. "Before you complete your assessment, I think you should see something." Marcus moved to the family's main display interface and activated the project files that Kyleth had been working on for his systems design competition. The holographic models that appeared showed sophisticated integration of biotechnical and mechanical engineering approaches that would have impressed professional designers. Kyleth has been developing these systems integration concepts for an academic competition. The designs incorporate both Linari biological harmony principles and Corvin structural engineering, exactly the kind of mixed cultural approach you've been criticizing. The holographic models rotated slowly, displaying elegant solutions to complex infrastructure problems. Each design demonstrated a level of innovation that could only have emerged from someone who truly understood multiple technological philosophies. This is what happens when children are encouraged to develop their full potential instead of being limited by narrow cultural expectations, Marcus continued. Kyletha's mixed heritage isn't a problem to be solved, it's a strength that allows him to see solutions that single-species designers might miss. Dr. Korvash studied the holographic displays with obvious surprise. These designs are quite sophisticated for someone of his age. They're sophisticated for someone of any age, Zara said, stepping forward to support her son. Kyleth has been working on them with guidance from both Marcus and myself, combining human practical experience with Linari biotech knowledge and his own Corvin engineering intuition. More importantly, Marcus added, he's been using this project to channel his protective instincts into constructive achievement instead of fighting. The confidence he's gaining from academic success is helping him develop better strategies for handling social challenges. Neera spoke up unexpectedly. Dr. Korvash, can you feel how our family emotions connect together? The evaluator looked confused by the question. I am not empathically sensitive. Then, you can't understand the most important thing about how our family works, Neera continued with 9-year-old directness. We share feelings so we can help each other. When someone is sad, we all feel it, so we all help make it better. When someone is happy, we all feel it, so the happiness gets bigger. That's not how proper family structures function, Dr. Korvash protested. Children require stable, predictable authority relationships, not emotional chaos. It's not chaos, Dex piped up. It's like a song that everyone sings together. Sometimes someone sings louder because they need help, and sometimes someone sings softer because they're feeling shy, but it's always the same song. Marcus felt a surge of pride through the family bond. Without any coaching or preparation, the children were explaining the essence of their family dynamic in terms that should resonate with any reasonable observer. Dr. Korvash looked uncomfortable with the children's testimony. Emotional manipulation is not an appropriate foundation for child development. It's not manipulation, Kyleth said firmly. It's connection. And it's the reason I was able to stop fighting and start building. When I feel angry about unfair treatment, the family bond helps me understand that my anger hurts everyone I love. That makes me want to find better solutions. Zara stepped forward, her starlit hair brightening with controlled emotion. Dr. Korvash, you came here looking for evidence that our family structure is harmful to my children. Instead, you found children who are academically successful, emotionally articulate, and developing innovative approaches to complex problems. What exactly is the dysfunction you're concerned about? Dr. Korvash consulted his data slate, clearly struggling with the gap between his preconceptions and the evidence he was observing. The irregular nature of the household composition remains problematic from a regulatory standpoint. Irregular how? Marcus asked. We have 2 adults sharing parental responsibilities, 3 children receiving appropriate care and education, and a stable living environment. The only thing irregular about us is that we don't all share the same biological heritage. The regulations are designed to ensure proper child development outcomes. And, what outcomes are you measuring? Zara interrupted gently. Academic achievement? Emotional stability? Social integration? Cultural identity development? By every meaningful metric, our children are thriving. Dr. Korvash spent several minutes reviewing his notes, the data pad displays showing the academic records, health assessments, and behavioral observations he had compiled. Finally, he looked up with an expression of bureaucratic frustration. My preliminary findings indicate adequate family functioning within acceptable parameters, he said reluctantly. However, I will be recommending ongoing monitoring to ensure that current positive indicators are sustained over time. Marcus felt the family's collective relief wash through their bond, but he also sensed that this victory was incomplete. The threat of ongoing scrutiny would continue to hang over them, and other non-traditional families would face similar harassment unless broader changes occurred. Dr. Korvash, he said carefully, may I suggest something? The evaluator looked suspicious. What? Instead of ongoing monitoring focused on finding problems, what if you established our family as a case study for successful cross-species integration? You could document our approaches and outcomes to develop better guidelines for other families facing similar challenges. It was a risky suggestion, inviting continued official attention could backfire badly. But Marcus sensed that turning their success into a model for others might be the best way to protect both their own family and future interspecies households. Dr. Korvash considered the proposal. A longitudinal study documenting cross-species family dynamics could have significant research value. Particularly if it demonstrated that children benefit from exposure to multiple cultural approaches rather than being harmed by them, Zara added. The academic applications alone would justify the extended observation period, Kyleth contributed, understanding intuitively what his parents were trying to accomplish. Dr. Korvash made additional notes, his expression shifting from hostility to professional interest. I will need to consult with my supervisors about restructuring this evaluation as a research study rather than a compliance investigation. Of course, Zara agreed. We would be happy to participate in legitimate research that might help other families. After Dr. Korvash left, the family gathered together in their main living area for the evening meal Marcus had prepared while waiting for the evaluation to conclude. The relief of having survived the bureaucratic challenge was tempered by awareness that their struggle represented something much larger than their own situation. There will be other families facing similar challenges, Zara said as they ate. Our success today means we have a responsibility to help them as well. How do we do that? Neera asked. By continuing to be ourselves, Marcus replied. By proving every day that love and commitment matter more than biological similarity. By raising children who understand that diversity makes us stronger rather than weaker. And by winning that systems design competition, Kyleth added with renewed determination. If I can demonstrate that mixed heritage produces better solutions rather than confused thinking, it will change how people think about interspecies families. We'll all help, Dex declared. I'll explain how the maintenance bugs work together even though they're different designs. Marcus looked around at his family, the remarkable woman who had given him a home when he'd been lost, the children who had taught him that love could transcend any boundary, the bonds that connected them all in ways deeper than biology or law. 6 weeks ago, he'd been a desperate job seeker with nothing to offer but practical skills and the willingness to work. Tonight, he was part of something unprecedented and wonderful, a family that proved the universe was big enough for every kind of love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but they would face them together. And, in facing them, they would help create a galaxy where families like theirs could flourish without fear, where children could grow up celebrating all aspects of their heritage, and where the dream of unity among the stars became reality one household at a time. The future stretched ahead of them like an unexplored galaxy, full of infinite possibilities for those brave enough to build bridges between worlds.